I'm on my back patio today binding up all of my pinup books and a couple others as well. And so I just wanted to go through the process here. I like to put an arrow on the little guide that I create, just so I put it all in the same direction every time, because when you get the pages upside down, they don't always match up with the holes quite as appropriately as you want. You can buy the awl that I have, AWL, that I have right there, in a bookbinding kit that I got off of Amazon for pretty expensive. It came with a set of needles and some of the wax thread that I use. I like to work from the back of the book from the outside in, otherwise the holes have a tendency to poke out and then the binding is just not quite as smooth. If you use buttons like I do, it's a little bit easier to cover up those holes, but if you choose not to use buttons, then those little holes will be poking out and kind of pointy. Same process for putting the holes into the signatures of the books. This book has 3 signatures, and so I just line it up in the middle, and usually I pick a spot where I'm lining it up from, like a little thread line or something like that, so that it's always the same distance from the bottom, and that way the pages will line up to the bottom of the book in the same kind of way. In general, I make my signatures about a ½ inch shorter than the height of the cover. That way it ensures that if there's any kind of mismatching or overhang, that it should fit inside the book nicely. Found that I was wasting a lot of thread because every time I would sew in a signature, I would cut a new length of thread. So lately I have been taking really long pieces of thread so that I can sew 2 or 3 signatures at the same time. And that's why the thread here is so long. The problem is that it gets a little bit tangled up around the book sometimes. The needle that I'm using, you couldn't really see it there, but it has a flat tip on it and it helps stab through pages, because even though you poke, you will notice that I struggle sticking this darn needle through the holes every time, and it doesn't always like to find its way through. So it's nice to have something that's not dull, that still has some kind of knife blade to it so that it can make its way through the pages. I work from the back to the front, so the back signature is the one that I do, and that's not for any specific reason other than the fact that if I have a specific way that I do it, I'm not going to accidentally put the back signature in the front or vice versa. It just keeps everything in order for me. Before I start putting buttons on, I do decide what colors I'm going to use, but when I'm picking the buttons, I just kind of look at it as I go and make sure I have even distribution of bigs and smalls and the color varieties that I want. On this one I used light blue, dark blue, white, and gray, and then there's a little bit of a beige-ish color, but the primary colors that I used were the blues because I wanted that to be the most profound one. I don't do patterning on there because that personally just bugs me, and so I keep the variance of colors as random as I possibly can. Sometimes I put 2 buttons, 1 buttons, or up to 3 buttons if they're small enough on a section between the holes. I don't really have a specific rule for it. I just know what I like it to look like. Surprised at how tough the pages are, that you can really bend and work them and they don't usually tear or fall apart, and it's just something that has surprised me. When I first started making books, I thought I had to be so careful and so delicate with them, but they really can endure a lot more twisting and working with them than I originally thought. To finish it off, I don't have a fancy knot that I use. It's just a basic square knot. And I leave a couple inches of thread at the ends of it in case it ever needs to get untied for any specific reason. That way you can still work with the book and the book isn't permanently put together. You still have the ability to shift things around if you need to. First time I made a pinup book, it was because I was at an antique mall and I found a package of vintage ephemera, and inside it I could see there was this magazine from the early 1900s, and I got really excited. And I didn't want to get in trouble for digging through the package, and so I didn't look inside to see what else was in there. And when I got it home and looked through it, yes, there was the old magazine, but there was also a pinup girl calendar from the 1990s. And I felt a little bit duped and was like, what? How come I ended up with this of all things? And I got it, I kind of looked at it for a while and thought about it and felt a little bit frustrated, and then eventually decided I was going to make a pinup girl book. And I used a whole bunch of lace for texture, and it ended up just being one of my absolute favorite books that I had ever made, and that I always remember the tassel on that was so pretty. And this time I didn't have a calendar that I used, but I did find Gil Evergreen, I think his name is the artist who did a lot of the pinup. Oh, you get to move the buttons around on here if you need to. And if you end up buying this book, you can move the buttons around however you want to. But I just think it's kind of nice that you can shift those. But anyway, I ended up using a book that had all of his paintings that he had ever done in there. And then I also bought some postcards and a calendar that's like, was a 365 pinup girl, like picture a day kind of calendar. And this is a size inclusive book too, because Hilda is one of the pinup girls who is in here, and she is a chubbier, beautiful pinup girl that has the cutest poses and outfits that I just love. And so I included some of her pinups in there as well. And I can't remember the artist on him, but does those, but the actress or the pinup girl name is Hilda. so it's finished now, just adjusting the buttons a little bit, and then we're going to take a flip through and you can just see what the whole book looks like. And I found out this is Hilda, and it's by Dwayne Bryars. It was the artists who seem to have the same model that he always used. But thank you for taking a peek and sticking with me this long.